sperm whales click in patterns. For decades, scientists called it niche. Then, in 2024, a machine learning system found something else. Hidden inside the clicks was structure. Grammar-like structure. Repeating units, like words. Some researchers now believe whales may have a real language. Not sounds. Not signals. Language. This is the story of how that discovery happened. And why some scientists are afraid of what it means. The ocean is dark. It is quiet in some places, and loud in others. Whales have lived in this darkness for over 30 million years. Long before humans built cities, whales were already talking to each other in the deep. We just never understood what they were saying. Sperm whales are some of the loudest animals on Earth. They make sharp clicking sounds, called codas. Each coda is a short burst of clicks, like Morse code. For a long time, scientists thought these clicks were simple. They believed whales used them only to find food, or to stay closer to family members. But something did not add up. In the 1980s, marine biologists began recording sperm whale clicks near the Caribbean. They noticed the clicks were not random. Different whale families used different patterns. It was like each family had its own accent. This was strange. Animals with simple communication do not usually have accents. Humans do. Songbirds do. But a fish-hunting mammal in the deep sea? That was unexpected. Still, without powerful computers, scientists could not study the clicks closely enough. The patterns were too fast, and too complex, for the human ear to break apart. So the research slowed down. For almost 40 years, whale clicks remained a mystery sitting quietly in old audio tapes. Then came a new tool. Not a submariner. Not a special microphone. A machine. In 2020, a group of scientists and engineers started a project called CETI, the Cetacean Translation Initiative. Their goal was bold. They wanted to use artificial intelligence to study whale communication, the same way I studies human language. If I could learn grammar in English or Mandarin, maybe it could learn the grammar of whales too. At first, this idea sounded almost like science fiction. Whales do not have hands. They do not build dolls. Many scientists believed true language needs a certain kind of brain structure. But sperm whales have massive brains, the largest on Earth. Bigger than any human brain. Nobody knew exactly why. The CETI team began collecting thousands of hours of whale recordings. They used underwater microphones, called hydrophones, placed near the island of Dominica. Slowly, click by click, they built one of the largest whale sound libraries in history. Nobody expected what the eye would find once it started listening. It did not just sort sounds. It started finding rules. Hidden rules, buried inside patterns that no human had noticed in 40 years of listening. And once those rules appeared, the researchers realized they were looking at something far bigger than whale behavior. They may have opened the door to the first non-human language ever confirmed by science. But before they could confirm anything, they needed to understand how the machine was even doing this. And that answer would raise even stronger questions. To understand what happened next, we need to understand how the machine actually worked. This part is important. It is not magic. It is math. But the result felt almost magical. The AI system used by the CETI team is based on something called a large language model. It is the same basic idea used in tools like ChatGPT. These systems do not understand English the way humans do. Instead, they study huge amounts of text. They look for patterns. Which words come before other words? Which patterns repeat? Over time, the system builds a kind of map of language without ever being taught grammar rules directly. The scientists asked a simple question. What if they fed whale clicks into a similar system? Not words. not sentences. Just raw sound data, broken into small pieces. They trained the AI on more than 8,000 wale codas. Each coda was treated like a tiny puzzle piece. The AI's job was to find connections between these puzzle pieces, the same way it would find connections between words in a sentence. At first, researchers expected simple result. Maybe the AI would confirm what they already knew. Different wale families use different click patterns. That was already known. But the AI found something deeper. It discovered that certain clicks changed frequently depending on what came before them. This is called context-dependent structure. In human language, this is very common. The word ban means something different next to river, the next to money. Wallace, it turned out, were doing something similar. The meaning of a click pattern seemed to shift based on the clicks around it. This was the first sign that wale communication was not just a signal system. Signals are simple. A fire alarm means danger. It always means danger, no matter what sound comes before or after it. But language is different. Language bends. It changes with context. The AI also found something called combinatorial structure. This means smaller pieces can be combined in different ways to create new meanings. Human language works exactly like this. We use a small number of letters and sounds to build an unlimited number of words and sentences. If Wallace were combining click patterns in flexible ways, this was no longer just clever animal behavior. This was starting to look like grammar. The scientists were careful. They did not want to overstate the discovery. Animal communication research has a long history of false claims. In the 1970s, some researchers claimed chimpanzees could use full sign language, only for later studies to show the truth was far more limited. Nobody wanted to repeat that mistake with Wallace. So the team ran the analysis again and again. Each time, the same pattern appeared. The clicks were not random. They were not simple either. Something about them followed rules that felt strangely familiar. And that discovery led the researchers into a question none of them expected to be asking seriously. Could sperm whales have something like a phonetic alphabet? Once the AI confirmed that whale clicks followed hidden rules, the researchers needed to go deeper. They needed to know exactly how these rules worked. This is where the story becomes even more surprising. Human language uses building blocks. In English, we use letters to build words, and words to build sentences. Linguists call this a discrete combinatorial system. It means we have a small set of basic units that can be arranged in different orders to create endless meaning. The Chetty research team, working with linguists from MIT, found that sperm whale codas could be broken into smaller building blocks too. They called these blocks rhyme, tempo, rubato, and ornamentation. These are musical themes, but they distribute something structural. Rhythm was the spacing between clicks. Tempo was the overall speed. Rubato was a small stretching or shrinking of timing, almost like emotional emphasis. Ornamentation was an extra click added at the end, like a decoration. At first glance, these seemed like small details. But when combined, they created what researchers now call a phonetic alphabet, made of nearly 150 different coda types. This was much larger than anyone expected. Earlier studies had only identified around 21 coda types. This changed everything. If sperm whales had access to 150 different building blocks, and could combine them in flexible sequences, their communication system had far more potential complexity than scientists had ever imagined. It was no longer just a set of calls for food here or danger near. It looked more like a system that could, in theory, create new combinations over and over, similar to how humans create new sentences every day. Human ears could never have jogged this. The clicks happen too fast. Some patterns only reveal themselves when you compare thousands of hours of recordings side by side, something only a computer can do efficiently. This raised an important question inside the research team. If Wallace have had access to a complex communication system for millions of years, why did nobody find this earlier? One possible answer was simple. Nobody had the right tool. For most of scientific history, researchers were limited to human hearing and human pattern recognition. I removed that limitation. It could scan patterns at a scale and speed no person could match. But another possibility was more unsettling. My scientists were not looking hard enough because they assumed language was something only humans could have. This kind of thinking has a name. It is called anthropocentric bias. It means judging animal intelligence only through a human lens. Whatever the reason, the wall had been broken. For the first time, researchers had solid data suggesting sperm whales had structure in their communication, similar in form, if not in meaning, to human language. And once that data became public, one specific discovery inside it would catch global attention. Not because of what it proved, but because of how strange it looked. In late 2023, while reviewing whale recordings from the Eastern Caribbean, researchers noticed something odd. One specific coda pattern kept appearing across different whale groups, in different years, and in slightly different forms. It became known informally among the team as the exchange. This coda pattern showed up during moments when whales seemed to be greeting each other. It came right after two whale groups met in open water. One whale would click a pattern. Another whale, sometimes from a completely different family, would click back a modified version of the same pattern. This back and forth structure looked less like a signal and more like a conversation. To understand why this mattered, we need to compare it to something simpler. Many animals use call and response communication. Birds do this. So do some primates. But in most of those cases, the response is fixed. It does not change based on what was said. It is like pressing a doorbell and always hearing the same chime. What researchers ﷺ in the whale data was different. The responses were not identical repeats. They shifted slightly, depending on the opening click pattern. This suggested something closer to adaptive response, not a fixed reaction. The AI system flagged this pattern as statistically unusual. Out of thousands of coda exchanges, this specific structure repeated with a level of consistency that was hard to explain through random chance alone. Some researchers on the team were cautious. They warned against jumping to conclusions. Pattern recognition, even by advanced AI, does not always mean meaning. A system can find structure in random noise if you search hard enough. This is a known challenge in data science, sometimes called apophenia, when patterns seem meaningful but are not. But others on the team pointed out something important. This pattern did not appear only on C. It appeared across multiple pods, across multiple years, and in a very similar shape each time. Randomness usually does not repeat with that kind of consistency across completely separate whale families that had likely never interacted directly. This left the team with two possibilities. Either sperm whales across the ocean were independently developing a very similar communication structure. Or, more strikingly, this pattern was being passed between groups somehow, almost like a shared piece of cultural knowledge. Neither option was simple. Both suggested a level of social complexity in whale communication that had never been confirmed before. The team began referring to this repeating exchange privately as the hunch. Not because they knew what it meant, but because it behaved exactly like one. A predictable opening. A modified response. A pattern that repeated whenever two different groups came into contact. Nobody on the team was ready to say this was proof of language in the full human sense. But something about Terhansha made several senior researchers uneasy. It felt less like an accident of nature. It felt like something intentional. And that unease would only grow as the team began asking what these clicks might actually be communicating. Once researchers accepted that wale codas had structure, the next question was harder. What are the wales actually communicating? This is where science has to be very careful. It is easy to imagine wales discussing deep philosophical ideas. That kind of thinking makes a good story, but it is not good science. Researchers had to build their conclusions only from evidence, not imagination. The strongest evidence pointed to identity and social bonding. Sperm whales live in tight family groups called matrilines. These are led by related females, who stay together for decades. Calves learn coda patterns from their mothers and other adult whales in the group, similar to how human children learn language from the people around them. These means coda patterns likely carry information about group identity. A whale's clicking style may say, in effect, I belong to this family. Different matrilines even show different dialects, meaning their patterns are learned and passed down, not simply built into their biology from birth. The AI analysis added another layer. It found that some codas seemed linked to emotional or social context, not just identity. Certain coda types appeared more often during moments of stress, such as when a predator, like an orca, was nearby. Other codas appeared during calm social interactions, such as grooming or resting together near the surface. This suggests sperm whale communication may work on at least two levels. One level marks identity, almost like a name or a family label. Another level may carry situational information, similar to tone of voice in humans. Researchers were cautious about using the word language too freely. Language, in the strict scientific sense, requires more than patterns. It usually requires symbolic meaning, where a sound represents an idea, not just an emotion or identity marker. Proving symbolic meaning in animals is extremely difficult, and no team has fully proven it yet for whales. However, the structure found in the data, the layered building blocks, the context-based shifts, and repeating exchange patterns like Terhansha pushed sperm whale communication closer to language than any previous discovery in marine biology. Some scientists compared it to an early alphabet, one that could carry identity, emotion, and possibly social rules, even if it does not yet meet every strict definition of full language. This left the research community in an unusual position. They had opened a door using AI that revealed far more complexity than expected, but they still could not fully translate what was behind it. It was like finding an ancient script that clearly follows grammar rules, without having a dictionary to read it. For a project built on the excitement of possibly decoding whale language, this created a strange kind of silence. Not because the discovery was small, but because it may have been too big to fully explain yet. And that silence would soon extend beyond the lab, into something researchers did not expect at all. You would expect a discovery like this to bring loud celebration. Instead, something quieter happened. After the initial findings were shared in scientific papers and conferences in 2024, media coverage exploded for a short time. Headlines used bold words like "whale language decoded" and "I translates whales." But inside the actual research community, the tone was very different. Careful, measured, almost hesitant. Several senior marine biologists outside the Chetty project pushed back publicly. They warned that finding structure in sound patterns is not the same as finding language. They pointed out that even random systems can appear structured if you search long enough with powerful pattern detection tools. This is a well-known risk in AI-driven research across many fields, not just biology. This treatise was fair, and the chatty team acknowledged it. But something else was happening beneath the surface. Some researchers who reviewed the recorded data noticed a strange trend. As more recordings were collected over 2024 and 2025, from wider ocean regions, the same repeating exchange pattern, Hasilnya, kept appearing again and again. Different oceans. Different whale populations. Similar structure. If this pattern were simply randomness, statisticians would expect it to vary more randomly across separate populations. Instead, it seemed to hold a consistent shape. This raised a quiet but serious question inside the team. Was this pattern something whales developed independently, over and over, because it serves some deep evolutionary purpose? Or was there a simpler explanation? Are sperm whale populations more connected, and more capable of transmitting shared communication patterns across oceans, than modern science currently believes? Neither answer was small. Both would reshape our understanding of whale intelligence and whale society. At the same time, funding conversations around the project became more complicated. Ocean acoustic research is expensive. It requires underwater recording stations, boats, specialized software, and long-term data storage. Some of this funding came from private technology companies interested in AI applications beyond marine biology. This created an uncomfortable tension. Was the goal purely scientific curiosity? Or was there a growing interest in the potential future use of this technology beyond whales? Some researchers began asking, quietly, whether the coding animal communication patterns could eventually help develop broader AI communication tools, even human-ones. This is not confirmed as a hidden motive. But it was a real conversation happening inside academic and tech circles. The mixture of excitement, caution, and business interest created a strange kind of hush around the project. Public headlines still promised big breakthroughs. But scientists closest to the data were choosing their words more and more carefully. This tension between public excitement and private caution set the stage for an uncomfortable question that many people in the field were reluctant to ask directly. Who actually controls this technology, and where is it really headed next? To understand where this research is heading, we have to look at who is funding it, and why. The Cetacean Translation Initiative was not built only by university researchers. It was supported by a mix of academic institutions, conservation groups, and technology investors. This kind of partnership is common in modern science. Advanced AI research is expensive, and most universities cannot fund it alone. But this partnership also raises questions worth examining carefully, without exaggeration. Some of the funding came from groups deeply involved in artificial intelligence development, not marine biology. Their public interest was framed around conservation. Understanding whale communication could help protect endangered whale populations by tracking their movements, social bonds, and stress levels more accurately than before. This is a real and valuable goal. However, the underlying AI models built to study whale sound patterns are not limited to whales. The same base technology, designed to find hidden structure in complex data, can be applied to other fields. Human speech analysis, emotional pattern detection, long-term behavioral prediction. This is not a hidden secret. It is openly discussed in AI research communities. Tools built for one purpose often get adapted for many others. This means the technology developed to study whale clicks could, in theory, become a foundation for much broader communication analysis tools, well beyond ocean life. Researchers within the project have stated publicly that their focus remains on conservation and scientific understanding. There is no confirmed evidence that this technology is being secretly redirected toward unrelated uses. It is important to be clear about that. Speculation without evidence is not the same as proof. But the overlap between conservation science and advanced AI development creates a natural gray area. Powerful pattern recognition tools, once built, do not stay contained to a single purpose. History shows this repeatedly. Technology created for space exploration ended up in everyday devices. Technology built for language translation ended up shaping global surveillance tools. This is not a claim of secret conspiracy. It is a pattern seen across many areas of technological development. Inside the Wale research community, some scientists have privately expressed concern, not about wrongdoing, but about direction. If future funding becomes more tied to commercial AI interests than conservation goals, will research priorities shift? Will studies focus more on refining marketable AI communication tools, and less on protecting Wale populations themselves? Nobody has answered this clearly yet. Wale conservation and AI advancement can align well together. But they can also quietly drift apart, especially when funding priorities shift over time. This leaves an important, unresolved tension sitting underneath one of the most fascinating discoveries in modern marine science. A tension between understanding nature and building tools that reach far beyond it. And that tension leads directly into the final, most uncomfortable question this entire investigation keeps circling back to. After years of recordings, machine learning models, and careful scientific caution, one question remains largely unanswered. Not because scientists are hiding something, but because the truth may be genuinely difficult to face. If sperm whales have a structured communication system, layered with identity markers, emotional context, and repeating exchange patterns like Terduga, what does that mean for how we have treated them for centuries? For hundreds of years, humans hunted sperm whales at massive scale. Entire industries were built around whale oil, whale bone, and whale meat. At the time, whales were seen mostly as resources. Their intelligence was rarely considered part of the moral conversation. Modern research is now suggesting these animals may have had complex social communication systems long before humans ever understood what they were listening to. If sperm whales truly possess something resembling early language structure, even without full symbolic meaning confirmed, it forces an uncomfortable historical reflection. Were we ending conversations we never even knew existed? This is not a comfortable question. Science tries to remain neutral, focused only on data and evidence. But data has a way of leading straight into ethical territory, whether researchers want it to or not. There is also a forward-looking concern. As AI tools become more advanced, the ability to detect structure in non-human communication will only grow. Dolphins, elephants, and even some birds show early signs of similarly complex vocal patterns. If whale codas turn out to carry structured meaning, similar tools may reveal the same in other species. This raises a larger question about how modern society defines intelligence, and how much of that definition has simply been shaped by human limitations, rather than by the actual capabilities of other species. For decades, science set the bar for language extremely high, partly because we lacked tools capable of detecting subtler forms of it. Now that AI has lowered that barrier, we may be standing at the edge of a much larger shift in how humans understand animal means. The Chetty research team continues its work carefully, avoiding sensational claims, focused on gathering more data before making bold declarations. That caution is appropriate. Extraordinary claims deserve extraordinary evidence, and his research is still ongoing. But the pattern found in Terduga, the layered coda structure, and the deep family dialects discovered so far, all point toward one undeniable conclusion. Sperm whales are not simply making noise beneath the waves. They are communicating in ways far more intricate than anyone assumed possible just a few years ago. Whether this eventually matches the full scientific definition of language remains unknown. But the ocean, it turns out, was never silent. We simply did not have the tools to listen closely enough, until now. And somewhere beneath the waves, sperm whales may still be having conversations we are only just beginning to understand.